Hey everybody, what's up? It's me, Sarah G with the Smack, and I am back. Today we're going to be talking about serving clients with dignity as a flat fee or advice only financial planner or advisor. And I'm excited today because I have Eric Simonson and Scott Zalaski here. Woohoo! They are fervent supporters of this movement, and I am going to make this webinar as interactive as possible. None of the blah blah that is typical of these kinds of things. So get your questions ready and make sure that you chat them into me, or you can just at an appropriate time say it onto the webinar. So here are just some basic announcements. This is a recorded line. It will also be posted onto social media and onto my YouTube channel. So if you want your identity concealed, please conceal your identity by shutting off your video and changing your name. Or if you can't be on a recorded line for compliance reasons, then please exit the webinar and watch the replay. I have a newsletter on this topic on advice only and flat fee topics. Please join it. The URL, I'm going to put it in the chat. We also have a LinkedIn group where we are supporting each other and sharing information. So I'm going to put that in the chat as well. It's important to know also that this is designed to be an accessible format for people across the spectrum in terms of having disabilities. Okay, so if anyone has a disability such as being blind, deaf, has sensory processing issues, has lost a limb, or has other disabilities that will make accessibility to this webinar prohibitive, please kindly let me know. I was asking this question before the webinar, and post-webinar, I will try to make accommodations as best I can should anybody be experiencing a disability. And so having said that, I want to just move on to starting the webinar. We have a lot to talk about here today. The question to you is, what are your questions about flat fee or advice only? This is a forum for exchanging communications as much as it is for us lecturing. So if I don't get any questions, then I'm just going to start in with the first speaker. The speakers are Scott and Eric. So let's just maybe start out with Scott.
Hey, Sarah.
Hi.
Okay, well, I think, based on the topic of the webinar today, the first thing that I want to talk about, and Eric will talk about a little bit different, but is flat fees. Flat fee advice is something that a lot of advisors are looking to potentially switch over to, but in my opinion, not enough. Flat fee can work in many different ways. The first way is for an advisor that is doing just financial planning. They can charge flat fees to do that, more of a retainer subscription type of model. Or if you're doing full planning and investment management, a combination of both, you can again do a flat fee model with that, as well as retainer or a subscription type of model with that as well. So I think what I've learned in the flat fee arena is, first of all, my roots kind of go back to 20 years of starting and working as a partner in a low-cost, mainly investment management firm. Back in 1999, we started that company, and we did basic planning, but mostly centered around investment management. Our fees were very low at the time, but it was an AUM fee. So working in a low-fee environment, I kind of knew what to expect, what types of time commitments were needed on both, direct and indirect communications with clients, meaning direct, I'm having phone conversations, email exchanges, video meetings, indirect, meaning that, you're having, behind the scenes meeting prep, investment management of their actual accounts, or any other things that might be non-directly related to an interaction with a client in person again, or by phone or by video. So, you look at that and it's kind of like the law of averages. Of course, you're always going to have some clients that are going to need a lot more time because their situation maybe initially is more complicated, but then again, after the moving pieces, it becomes sort of less complicated over time, and you spend a certain amount of time, again, directly and indirectly working with a particular client. So back in 2017, I started my current firm, First Metric, which is a full service investment management and planning business, but the planning that we do is mostly centered around retirement planning. Obviously, we can talk about other topics as they come up, but the typical client that I work with is a very niche type of client, meaning that they again are all within kind of a certain age, a certain demographic as far as where they're at in life, and that allows you basically to end up with a certain amount of average hours that you end up spending, again, indirectly and indirectly. So when I launched the company in 2017, I knew kind of on average how much time was going to be required per client. Again, more or less depending on client, but on average over a long-term relationship. And then kind of what fee I wanted to earn per hour for the time commitment that was going to be needed both directly and indirectly. So then I priced my services accordingly, and I charge clients $495 a month fixed fee. And again, that's for full service investment management, regardless of the size of a client's account, regardless of the number of client accounts that they have, and also, frankly, regardless of the amount of time that's needed. I don't watch a clock. I don't bill clients. I do, I think, a good job up front, making sure that it's a good client advisor fit. And then I think if you have that, you don't need to go back and constantly worry about whether you're spending too much or too little time with clients. So that's kind of the 2-minute version of kind of my 20-year history and how I got from, low cost investment management, mainly with some basic planning, to starting First Metric in 2017. I think that was the year. I had to go back and look, but I think it was 2017. And charging fixed fees. Although, in all fairness, I didn't start off charging fixed fees when I started First Metric. I started again charging a very low asset-based fee because I was managing client money as well. And then I quickly realized, based on the clients that I'm working with and the progression, again, at warp speed of technology, the way that it allows for productivity and more client relationships that you can manage, that I was really charging too much, even at a very, very low asset-based fee. So I started looking at, what's different that I can, basically do that would, I think, that is the future of this industry, which is, again, I don't know that it's all flat fee. It could be hourly fee. It could be retainer fixed. There's a number of things, but what I do know is that clients are very well educated now. They should be knowing what they're paying their advisor, and the industry should be moving, even though it's moving very slow, to more of a dollar amount, again, hourly fixed fee, project fee type basis. So clients know in hard dollars what they're paying for investment advice or investment management, or a combination of both. So I think, to me, it's all about transparency and clarity as to what a client is paying. And a lot of advisors out there, regardless of their fee model, will say that they're transparent because they have to list their fees in their ADV for regulatory purposes. Well, yeah, that's correct, from a legal sense. But, when you start looking at an ADV and it's anywhere from 3, 4, 5, 10 pages long just to describe the fee section, then it's not really, clear at that point. There's no clarity. Yeah, it may be transparent. They disclose everything, but it's not really clear what a client might be paying. So to me, I'm all about, what is a hard dollar amount that a client is paying? Is it fair to the advisor and client? And I tend to be kind of on the low end of that scale, because my personal opinion is, I think most advisors are way overcompensated for what they do. Now, I'll put a little caveat in that and say, most of the time in the first year to 18 months working with a client, you spend a lot more time than, on an ongoing basis, because you're really learning about them as a person, what their financial goals, objectives are. And then again, looking at all the moving pieces financially in their life. But once you have all that information, then there's less time on an ongoing basis that's put into, again, directly working with a client, or behind the scenes indirectly working with a client. And I think, advisors should be matching their fees to that level of work. So if they want to charge a little higher fee in the first year, I'm fine with that. But what I have a problem with is, when a lot of the heavy lifting is done in the first 12 to 18 months, and then advisors continue to charge kind of very high fees, in my opinion, on an ongoing basis for, I don't want to say minimal work, but a lot less work than they've been paying all along, and then they, again, should have been doing all along, then it becomes sort of problematic. So that's kind of the short version of my background and kind of how I came to charging flat fees. But when I started charging a flat fee right after initially launching, I started with, again, a low AUM fee. I went through several iterations of kind of the flat fee model, from charging a quarterly fixed fee to a monthly fixed fee and adjusting those amounts to kind of arriving where I'm at today. And a lot of that was centered around how did I want to design my business going forward, because it was different than what I had been doing in the past, which was mainly investment management with my prior firm that I was a partner in. So.
Okay, Scott, thank you so much. Financial advisors, let us know what your questions are. I have some if none of you speak up, but I'm going to be quiet until you ask the questions. So go ahead, everybody be quiet, except if you have a question.
Hi, this is Tim. I have a question.
Hey, what's up, Tim? Thanks for your question. Go ahead.
Yeah. Thanks, Scott, for your background. You see a lot on Twitter and other spaces about flat fee-only advisors and how do they scale? It's a common question. How did you scale? How many clients can you get to, and do you run out of capacity for that? Whereas AUM advisors, maybe they can scale a little bit easier. They've built models, et cetera. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on how many clients do you serve, and like, how did you scale? And is scaling even a problem for you, something you have to think about?
Yeah, that's a good question, Tim. I think, my personal view on it is that it is a scalable model if you, number one, price it correctly, and number two, more importantly, working with the right type of client. And I think even more important than those two is number three, which is understanding and delivering the same services to each client. So again, each client being different circumstances, different goals, different objectives. But if you're doing financial planning only for this one client, and then the next client you're doing just investment management, and then the next client you're doing both, and the next client you're going to wash their car and take their kids to school and everything else. I mean, you're doing kind of all things to all people. So I think, just based on my experience in charging fixed flat fees, and also my prior life experience with my other firm, the clearer you can get about your service offering and matching the fees to those offerings, I think then it becomes a scalable model. But then again, you have to look at it too, which I think is the bigger question, is do you want to scale? I mean, do you want to have what we all call a nice lifestyle practice versus more of an enterprise business you're trying to build with other advisors and, a lot more overhead and, offices, maybe not so much now with remote stuff, but, you have to look at kind of where you want your business to go. And I think at the end of the day, you can scale this because you can always back into what would the AUM fee be for that. Because frankly, assets really have nothing to do with, the time that you're putting in. If you were even to scale this to a larger business and bring multiple advisors on and support staff and the infrastructure to do that, it doesn't mean that, you're delivering anything different to a $5 million client necessarily than a $1 million client, unless you design your business where you are going to deliver something different and charge those clients different fees for that. But in my personal situation and the clients that I work with, I don't charge my clients different fees. I mean, I have clients that have multiple millions of dollars. I even one client that it's a small sort of family office, and they get charged the same fees as other clients because, again, it's a big time commitment up front, but then after that, it's not. You're updating information as you have meetings with clients. Again, I don't know whether you're managing money or not. If you're managing money, again, once these portfolios are set, there's not a lot of stuff that goes in. I like to kind of call it, my role, at least from the portfolio management side at that point, becomes more of the maintenance administrative person, where the portfolio is set. We're not really going to be changing that unless a client's financial or personal circumstances change. But at the other side of it is that they do need to have, dividends reinvested if they're, coming in, if they're saving money, cash reinvested, if they're in distribution phase, taking money out, making sure that cash is available, tax loss harvesting, rebalancing. These are all administrative things, and they only require a certain amount of time. And so at the end of the day, if you design your business of what you want it to look like, then you can back into what fees you want to charge for that. And it just becomes, in my mind, just as scalable as an AUM business, because at the end of the day, AUM is if you're basing it on account size, the markets go down, you're making less revenue, tend to spend a lot more time with clients because of more hand holding and more conversations that are needed when the markets are going down. So I don't know that that's really a scalable model just because the industry's done that all along.
Any rebuttal questions? Okay.
I do. Sorry.
Question from Justin. What types of clients, asset size or complexity / needs are you typically working with, Scott? I'm curious what market is taking you up on this, even though the asset size might not matter.
Yeah, so the clients I have, I don't know if it's by luck or the draw of, people that were already at a certain place in life, but the typical client that I have, again, there's a little bit of skewing because of kind of a small family office that I work with, but the average client I work with is about $5 million. I have about 45 clients. Again, some that are a little less, some more, but average 5 million. So it's generally a client that has multiple millions of dollars, at least in assets. And it's not a client necessarily where they've got so much in assets where they need pretty substantial estate planning and other things in that regard that I wouldn't necessarily be directly providing to a client but I would need to be on, constant telephone calls or meetings with attorneys or CPAs. So I typically interact with client attorneys or client CPAs, and a very minimal effort amount per year based on number one is if the client wants it, but more importantly, at least once a year, I try to get a client on the phone and at least have a, even if it's a short conversation with their accountant to talk about tax planning towards the end of the year. Attorneys, not so much. A lot of that is in place. A lot of the clients that I'm working with tend to already have professionals in those areas that they've been happy with and that they want to keep. So it's not, again, spending enormous amounts of time trying to work with a client and completely redraft their whole estate plan or completely look at, their entire tax situation. Yes, I get tax returns. Yes, I look at those, not doing clients' taxes. So again, there is important things that need to still be communicated to a CPA that sort of might get lost in translation with a client, sometimes just doing it on their own, even though, they know what's going on. And a good example would be something like Roth conversions. I have a number of clients that are physicians that do Roth conversions every year or do backdoor Roth contributions. And even though conceptually the clients that I work with understand how that stuff works, I still once a year contact the client and their CPAs, and we try to have a discussion about, are they accounting for that correctly in the tax returns? Because what I've found is a lot of times with CPAs, they're busy at tax season and they're just simply looking at the tax forms. They're not like saying, okay, well, you're 40 years old. Why are you getting a 1099-R on your IRA account? They're just basically putting that on a tax return as income. So I want to make sure things like that, and then additional tax planning is a room for do for conversions based on clients' tax brackets. So there is a lot of work that goes in, but again, it's work that you already know a lot about the client and their situation. So you're not, again, relearning all this all the time. So you just you account for that in the way you price your service and the way that you describe what you do and how you work with clients. I don't think that any of my clients, if I called everyone today, would expect to say that they're going to want to hear from me every single month on a certain date just to talk about how they're doing or how's the weather in their certain area of town. I tell people that, we want to have conversations as needed. And with some clients that is, 10 times a year, some clients that's once a year, and some clients, again, it's just at the end of the year for tax planning purposes and maybe even, email exchanges to that extent if their situation has been stable and there's not really anything different from the prior year. So again, everybody's a little different, but I've priced it where, again, I'm not watching a clock trying to figure out, I'm going to bill the client for the last 15 minutes that I talked to them or answered an email. I kind of look at this on an annual basis and say, okay, on average, did I have any outlier clients where I've spent an enormous amount of money? And usually that's not because of the fault of a client. That's usually the fault of me because I spent more time. Maybe I didn't gauge them initially as they became a client as to what their expectations were in hiring an advisor, again, nothing to do with flat fee, but when you lay your services out there and you try to explain that both publicly on your website, in your ADV, and then also, talking to them on the phone and multiple calls as you work with them to onboard them as a new, hopefully long-term client, that you've communicated your services and fees and everything in a sort of straightforward way. But again, if there was any confusion with any of that and clients are expecting something different than you're delivering, then I think the disconnect becomes, and then you either resolve that or, again, look for opportunities where maybe, again, that client can be matched up with an advisor that's, meeting their expectations, not just on fees, but also on services that they're expecting.
Scott, there's another question. Go ahead, Todd.
Thanks, Sarah. Hi, everybody. I sort of have a kind of a broad question. It's not specifically just for you, maybe, Scott, but I kind of want to get a sense of what's actually wagging the dog here. When I set out to make, my decision on what my fee structure was going to be, it looks there's kind of two different parts. It's, are you going to make it more affordable for those people that have a lot of assets and have traditionally been billed in that AUM cycle? Or is your focus to make it more accessible? So to make it more affordable for clients who don't necessarily have a lot in the way of assets. When you're determining that sort of, fee, regardless of how much assets they have, do you calculate it based on the money that you save them, a combination of the money that you save them by working with you, plus the value of the hours that you spend on their case?
Yeah, I mean, I guess from my, and Eric can speak for what he says, but from my take on this is that I don't ever price my fees or look at what I do as, what I think a lot of advisors, especially out on social media and social media platforms, is, I provide value. Okay, well, that's great. That's just a subjective term. And, again, you can say that all day long, but the reality is that, clients need advice when they need it. So again, like I was saying earlier, that, one client might need advice 10 times a year on 10 different topics because they have, a lot of complexity to what's going on in their financial and personal circumstances. And then another client doesn't have that complexity. They've got a lot of the stuff figured out. And so, they don't require as much time from you, again, indirectly or directly. So it comes down to, saving client money. That's kind of, when I hear that, I hear more what I hear on social media, which is I provide value. And, if I save a client $10,000, then I'm worth my fee that I charge, whether it's, $495 a month, like I charge, or $20,000 a year because they have $2 million at 1%. So, again, it gets back to, at the end of the day, I like to say, if a doctor saved my life, they're worth millions of dollars, but they're not going to get paid millions of dollars. So you can't really base it on, client savings, at least in my opinion. You base it basically on, again, the number of hours you spend or the services you're providing, or a combination of both. And that comes out to a fixed fee. So from what I was saying before, where a client, I don't care if a client has, $1 million or $20 million or anything in between, at the end of the day, it's a number, and it doesn't reflect the amount of time and energy and services that a client needs. The client with 1 million, again, might need 10 times the work than a client with 20 million or anybody in between there. So, it gets tough when you're trying to base it on savings or, again, this vague value add term that advisors like to kind of throw out there. And it makes it worse because, like, even Vanguard, for instance, did an advisor study on this that, that they say that, I forget the exact numbers, but it's some crazy number, like, advisors add 2% a year in value just from behavioral coaching and other things. And I don't discount that there's value added in those areas, but it's not really quantifiable at the end of the day. I mean, at the end of the day, sure, if you talk to a client on the phone for 5 minutes or exchanged an email with them and it prevented them from doing something, again, whether it's selling out of their account when the market's gone down, or a bad decision from a tax perspective or estate planning, perspective, that at the end of the day is something that you should just be doing as an advisor. It's not something you should be getting paid for. And it's not really quantifiable because this client needed it and the next client didn't need that sort of behavioral hand holding, coaching, they're fine and, can
All right.
handle the risk.
Okay. Beep, beep. Okay,
Yeah,
Scott,
I'll
sorry.
keep going. Interrupt me, Sarah. Yep.
Okay, so there's one more question here, and then we're going to move on to Eric S. But the question is, flat fee seems to work well for a homogeneous group of clients, particularly older clients with higher net worth. Do you think the flat fee system limits entry for younger clients who are on the way up? Example, 30 years old with 300,000 in assets. I do think Eric is a great person to answer this question, but Scott, could you answer this question, like, let's say in 10 seconds or less?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, it is challenging for people that have, I want to say, lower assets. It just comes down to that person can have $300,000, but maybe they're making $200,000 a year. So it's not like, again, they can't afford advice. It's just, again, we're looking at this saying it's based on the size of someone's account, not what they need for services. I think that's where advisors sort of get caught up in their own head, where if they got 300,000 versus somebody with 2 million, how can I charge that client with 300,000 the same amount that I'd be charging the client with 3 million? Well, you can if you're providing the same services. Unfortunately, you're either going to have to lower your fees if you feel that that's unfair then, or again, not work with that or have a different lower offering or a different type of offering where at least till they get to a certain point where you think that fee's fair. So I agree with you. I think, for most people, advisors that are charging a fixed flat fee, it only works if you're working with sort of like-minded, like demographic clients. When you start trying to go everywhere, if I'm working with retirees versus people that are in their early 20s starting to save and have a lot of complexity to their life, then I would say my fee and even what I'm providing to them doesn't work for that. I would have to have a separate offering for people in that area of where they are in life because of the amount of time that's needed. And again, it's not based on assets. It's just simply based on sheer amount of complexity that's going on.
All right. And with that, I'm going to remove you from the spotlight, Scott.
All right.
And where is Eric? Eric, just when you're, Eric, where are you? Uh-oh. Okay, well, we're in a little bit of a technical difficulty here where Eric Simonson has exited the webinar. So having said that, until Eric comes back, I guess we could just have a conversation about advice only. And then now here he is, abracadabra. Hello.
Hello. Sorry, my internet just cut out. Bad timing, but here I am. Can everybody hear me?
There you are. Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right. So hello to everybody out there. I applaud everybody for being here, because if you are considering going into low cost or flat fee financial planning, then you are a brave person. So thank you for doing that. It is the best thing for the industry. So a little bit about me and Abundo. So I started my career at a broker dealer. I worked there for 12 years as a partner. And just like Scott, we did investment management and financial planning. And basically I left because I felt like, one, we didn't serve people who actually needed to be served. I felt like in the AUM model, you only work with high net worth people because obviously you want to work with bigger and bigger clients. So you are turning the door away to people who are, just starting out in life and can't afford your advice. So I wanted to change that. And then the second thing is, I thought there was an overwhelming amount of data points that pointed to active management actually not being worth the fee. I think there is a decade now plus worth of data out there that says that passive investing, just low cost ETFs, do perform better net of fees than most active management strategies. So why should we be charging a fee on the investment side when we can just be telling the client to go invest in a mix of low cost ETFs and buy and hold? I saw those two things, and in my mind that clicked and said I should go start a business that I charge a flat fee for, and I help my clients go invest in low cost indexes on their own. So I launched Abundo in just like Scott, I got to think about this. I launched Abundo fall of 2019. And I was able to port over about 10 clients or so from my former firm, which served as a nice little nucleus. And then from there, things just kind of took off. By the end of the year, I think we were up to 30 clients in the first couple months, and then hired my first team member, who is now, I consider him a co-founder at the end of that year. And then in 2020, we brought on about, I think, 70 clients. And then 2021, we brought on another 100 clients or so. This year, we're on pace to bring on about 200 clients if things continue the trajectory that they're on. And so the growth has been great. And I think that is a testament that people are looking for what we are providing. And what makes us really unique, and what I think a lot of eyebrows in the industry, is that we charge a flat monthly fee of $89 a month for individuals, and a monthly fee of $39 a month for couples. Both of those individual and couple rates, we do charge a low one-time kind of startup fee as well. It's $375 for individuals, $450 for couples. And then that's it. There's no other costs or fees related to the advice after that. And on the investment side, what we do is we just teach and empower our clients to understand how to actually invest on their own. So how to set up an account at Fidelity or Vanguard or Schwab or wherever they want to do it, how to trade, how to do conversions, how to transfer accounts. We've got a library of educational videos and content to help them through that, as well as obviously they can always ask their advisor if they have questions about it too. So we now have 3 advisors. So there's myself, we have an advisor in California, and then we've got an advisor in Minnesota. So we're in advisors in 3 states, and we've got clients in about 25 different states. And our goal is really to scale. So we are trying to build that enterprise practice. Our goal is to eventually really carve out kind of a big piece of the industry here, and try to work with 20,000 clients, which I know is very ambitious. But so for us, it's all about scale and figuring out how do we continue to grow and be profitable, because that is the hard part at our price point, right? That everybody kind of questions, and a little bit of data around that. So it's very interesting. When I started, I was profitable until I hired my first employee, and then it went unprofitable. Then we got to profitable again, and then hired our first advisor, and then got unprofitable, and then rinse and repeat. And we're 3 years in, and I've just taken all the money we've earned from the business and reinvested that back into the business. I have yet to actually pay myself anything as owner. And I'm doing that purposefully because I really am trying to view this as a true startup. And we're just trying to figure out how do we get as efficient as we can? How do we build as much technology as we need to be able to serve as many clients as we can at our low price point? Because I think that is the right thing for the consumer. And we also think that it's kind of a blue ocean. There's a lot of 20, 30-year-olds, even 60-year-olds who just don't want to or can't afford with a traditional advisor. We want to be a good for them. So
Awesome, Eric. So this is from Shane. I love your model, Eric. Thank you for sharing. How does registration work for your model? Did you go directly to SEC registration, or did you start going state by state until you hit 15 states and then switched over?
Yes, Shane, thank you for your question. I started out state by state and then was able to get registered as an online only SEC firm, which I was very fortunate to get that registration. I was able to do so because, again, we are building a lot of our own technology, and some of our technology helps kind of provide advice or assist advisor with providing advice. And so it was kind of a way of getting in the door there, but we're to the point now to where we could just flip over and do the 15 states with 5 clients. So that's how we did it. I can't say that's going to work for everybody, but I would say work with your compliance specialist on that one. And Sarah, if you don't mind, I would love to address the other questions too, because I think I could provide some perspective on that.
Go ahead.
Okay, perfect. So I'm just going to go up the list here. So Ross's question, With the flat fee model. So yeah, a little point there. So Scott, is true flat fee in the sense that he manages clients' assets for them. We are advice only, meaning we give advice and clients then go and actually, push the buttons for trading. There's some differences, but they're still in kind of the same general family in terms of trying to support people. As far as scalability with that, or not scalability, but as far as working with younger clients, I would say even at Scott's price point, $495 a month, that is far more accessible for a 30-year-old with $300,000, because guess what? Like, Scott will work with them if they pay his fee, versus you work with, you look at an advisor that charges 1% a year, they might turn the door on that client and say, hey, I can't work with you. That's not enough revenue to justify taking you on as a client. So I actually think that flat fee or advice only is a beautiful way to work with people with low assets, because it doesn't matter if they have low assets, as long as they're willing to pay for advice, then they'll work with you. Right. So, Ross, that's the answer for you. Justin's question. So we are trying to build a brand where we provide financial planning, comprehensive, ongoing financial planning for everyone. So we've got a client who's 19, which is amazing. We've got clients all the way up to 70. Our average clients, we just looked at this, is about 37. They've got about 250,000 or so, I would say, of like investments, which, isn't a ton, but again, that's the average American out there. Actually, less than that is the average American out there. So we want to, give them advice and make sure they've got a trusted source of financial help. We do have, we've got bigger clients too. Our biggest client has about $1 million, which is definitely the upper limits of who would be comfortable working with. But we set clear expectations with that. And, just like Scott's seen, they're saving, I mean, gosh, there's 100,
Okay, so Eric is just freezing up here a little bit. I'm sure that he'll come back. And when he does, I'll just catch him up to where he left off. But in the meantime, does anybody else have any other questions?
Yeah, Sarah, this is David Barfield. I'll throw a question out there, but it's really for Eric. I see Cody out there, and I know he has a similar model. My question is around. So does Eric, or maybe Cody, if you can speak to this, or Scott, even you, I don't know if you take on clients where you don't manage their assets. Do you have clients that are essentially, you're working with these do-it-yourself clients, but do any of them want you to help them push the buttons? Or are they just strictly do-it-yourself? They want the guidance, and then they're expected to go off and push those buttons on their own without screen sharing and help doing that.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and answer. I know I wasn't like planning to speak, but this is Cody. I do advice only and only work with DIYers. Yeah, so it's a big misconception. Even though they're do-it-yourselfers, it doesn't mean they do it alone, right? Or learn it themselves. So yeah, literally the only difference between what an advice-only planner does and someone who manages money is I'm not the person clicking the button. So like, I do a 3-month engagement, and the whole 3rd month, I screen share with the client. I educate them on how to use their custodian, whether Fidelity, Vanguard. I teach them how to look at their cost basis, unrealized, realized capital gains, show them how to transfer money, convert, and we literally go step by step, and I show them how to trade. So the only difference is that they're the ones clicking the button versus me, because I believe that the clicking of the button is the least valuable in terms of time, temperament, and talent. That I believe that DIY investors can successfully do that part themselves, but it's really the financial planning, the decision making to what what to click the button on is really the value, and the clicking of the buttons is something I can teach them to do in a simple screen share. So I'll give it over to Eric since he's back.
Cody, thank you. I would have nominated you to fill in for me. And also this Houston internet, it's very intermittent. You got to teach me how to make this better. So one thing just to add to Cody's point. So I just moved to Houston, and something occurred to me. So number one, when I moved in, AT&T sent me a step-by-step guidebook of how to set up my internet. I did a bad job of that, clearly, but I was supposed to do it on my own. I had to buy some stuff from Home Depot. I checked myself out. I didn't use a cashier. I did it myself. I also bought furniture. I built it myself, right? So I feel like all of us are experiencing this in our lives, that there's more and more responsibility put on our shoulders. And when done correctly, it's either to save us time or save us money. And so I feel like by teaching our clients how to trade, giving them advice around doing that themselves, it's hopefully saving them a lot of money versus paying somebody else how to do it.
Yeah, thanks, Eric, and thanks, Cody, for your feedback as well. But I think your models are slightly different, just based on what I've been following Cody here for a while. But Eric, your model is more similar to what to the model I've set up, and I've just launched in the last couple of months, so that I don't really have too much experience with the client side of this. I just know what model I want to offer. But I guess my question is around the ongoing clients that you have. Do you take on clients that or have clients that end up coming back and saying, okay, I think I need to rebalance, or maybe you reach out to them and say, maybe it's time to rebalance. Do they want your help going forward with that, or do you kind of discourage that or encourage them to do that on their own and kind of teach them so that you don't have to get involved?
Yeah, great question, David. So we built a tool that it's kind of complicated to explain, but we built a tool that walks them through how to invest their money. And that tool actually tracks their purchases for them. And it sends the advisor an email when the investments drift enough where it makes sense to rebalance. So the advisor gets an email that says, hey, so-and-so client invested, on this date, 6 months ago, 8 months ago, 10 months ago. It now makes sense for them to rebalance. Here's what they need to do to rebalance. The advisor can reach out to the client and say, hey, go use our tool again. It will walk you through how to rebalance. And it has the quick step-by-step for them how to do that.
Cool. Thanks.
Yep.
What other questions do we have from the group? We will sit in silence until more questions emerge.
Sarah, can I ask a question?
Of course you can, Brian McCloskey.
Appreciate that, Sarah Grillo. And am I allowed to ask a marketing question?
Of course.
Awesome. Yeah, guys, it's really cool to hear your takes on your different business models. I appreciate that. For me, like my short little sweet story is, been in the industry a long time, never liked the hard sale type side of the business, was giving a lot of value to clients as I grew as an advisor, especially my niche is definitely the transitioning into and through retirement space. Hated the concept of charging 1% or more of asset size, because I was given the same value to all the clients, and there was different sizes, of course. Stumbled upon this flat fee thing back in December, completely said to myself, this is what I want to do. And it's feeling fantastic. So I say that to kind of tell where I've come from. Hearing what you guys, each of the different businesses and everything is super helpful. Now, my question is, I've been transitioning current clients over, grandfathering some, if it makes sense for them, switching them onto the flat fee. But I'm I'm terrible at marketing. So I just figured I'd ask if anybody can share some stories on how you're getting the word out about your flat fee model, because I know that I'm going to be able to, people should be beating down the door once I get the message out there the right way. So if anybody could speak to that, that would be super helpful.
Sarah is the best person to speak about this.
Probably, but I would just, I'll say something really quickly. Okay, so Brian, so you're flat fee advisor?
Yeah, I changed my ADV and everything to be flat. Yep.
Where are you located?
Right outside of Philadelphia.
Okay. Website, homepage. But everybody should be doing this, by the way. If you're advice only, flat fee, hourly, whatever you are, flat fee advisor in Philadelphia.
Got it. And I think you do have, I did print out and save your resource page. I just have to do the job of getting back to it. I think that's probably on there. You're probably like, duh, Bri, just go back to my website, right?
Right. Okay.
Right.
So but that, one of the things that has traditionally been overlooked with financial advisors is the idea of getting found in Google search. A lot of marketing people build it up that you have to pay a website person $800 a month and you have to do Google ads. That's BS and crap. You could do it yourself following the simple instructions that I provided on the marketing resources sheet on my website. If there are more complicated things that would necessitate an SEO person, but a lot of those can be learned. So, if you're starting out and your budget is constrained or you don't want to hire support, you actually can do it relatively easily yourself. So there are different keywords that you should have on your website. In the about page, it should be, my name is Brian. I set out to establish a flat fee financial advice firm in Philadelphia, and I serve clients across the country also, right? Your blogs, you should have blog. What is flat fee advice? What is it like being a flat fee advisor in Philadelphia? Questions to ask a flat fee financial advisor in Philadelphia. You should be beating the crap out of these keywords everywhere possible on your website, as much as SEO can possibly allow you to. You can't just stuff, but you should be following SEO guidelines. And I've provided Neil Patel links to his website. He is an excellent resource. Just follow him, watch his tutorials, read his blogs. He does an excellent job explaining how to do this. Okay, so that's the first thing, is that for free, you can get Google to send you people. The search volume for flat fee advisors is higher than for hourly or for advice only advisors. However, hourly and advice only financial advisors do get search traffic in Google. And if you are optimized this way, people will come to your website. And it's important to understand that this is a high intentionality key phrase. If someone is searching on the term flat fee advisor in Philadelphia, they probably have the willingness and also the intention of working with somebody like you. So these are further along across the spectrum where they're not going to be not looking for a financial advisor. You're not going to have to explain to them why flat fee or why advice only is more optimal, because they are probably already have their epiphany, so to speak. Okay. So that's the first thing, is Google. The second thing is that you should be going out with the typical ways that you would market yourself as a financial advisor. Depending on what your fee structure is, certain demographic groups that you are targeting may be easier to find through social media or less easy. Like retired people are probably not on LinkedIn. You would probably have better luck with them on Facebook or maybe even Twitter. If you're looking for the Gen Z crowd, I would say TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, maybe LinkedIn as well. LinkedIn targets working people. So there are people of all spectrums there but they tend to be working. They tend not to be retired as much. Okay. And so I have blogs on my website about the 5 components that you should have within your marketing wheelhouse, so to speak. A lot of people will try to make it really complex. There are 5 basic elements. It boils down to having simple, clear messaging and a simple, repeatable process that you can replicate over and over again. I have numerous blogs on LinkedIn Messenger as well. Use 2 sentences. Don't try to pitch people right away. You know, the best marketing pitch is just going out there and asking people what's on their mind, what questions do they have. If you go to people in your LinkedIn network and you say, I just start, you know, I'm a flat fee advisor. I wanted to know what questions you have about whatever, flat fees. What questions do you have about, hey, do you understand how financial advisors charge fees? What's a flat fee? Do you understand that? No? Okay, what questions do you have about it? Turn around, make a social media post about it. Some of my most successful postings have been when I've just taken a question that people have, for example, Reddit. If I were you, I would just get on Reddit and start responding to these, just people's questions. If you're targeting Gen Z, you should be on Reddit and just start talking to people. You know, there's people posting up there all the time. Should I hire a financial advisor? What kind of financial advisor? Like, should I pay off my mortgage or pay down, you know, school debt or this or that? There's all kinds of questions out there on social media. Be the one to answer the questions, be the one to solicit the questions, be the one to be at the center of discussions. And to do all of that, just go to my blog, type in LinkedIn in the search bar. It's for free. It's all there, and you could do it yourself.
Sarah, that's I really do appreciate that. If anything, I mean, that was a nice long way with a lot of good bullet points in it to say, just go back to my stuff I already posted. But at the same time, I really do appreciate that.
Well, you know, I don't know. I think a lot of times marketing people like to make it sound like it needs to be so complicated, but above all, I just can't emphasize enough that the mindset has to be one of sincere inquiry and being sincerely interested in hearing what people's questions are. Because it's so rare. Like, if you sit there and you sit there objectively, like this is weird, right? I'm going to tell you something weird. If I went to this one client of mine and they were kind of like hemming and hawing about stuff and complaining. And I go to them, I go, I don't really think it makes sense to work together anymore because you're so busy that you can't really do what, and this is a huge relationship. And I go, I fired them, right? And they were like, no, Sarah, like, we don't want to do that. You know, so I said, all right, I'll give you another month. And if you still can't do the work I'm telling you to do, because I do work for them, like I write the blogs, et cetera, but I'm like, if they need to render approval of the blog I write for them, right? And I'm like, if it's going to take me 2 weeks to get approval on a blog, I don't want to work with you anymore because it's not worth your money to be paying me, right? Who the hell says that, right? Nobody ever says that. Like, I basically fired myself from the relationship, right? And they were like, they respected so much my honesty. Like, they were like, no, Sarah, no, like, that's why we love you, because you really aren't in this just to make a buck off of us. Like, you really are in this for the results, and that you sincerely, not to say about this is about me, right? But I'm just saying, it's so rare that somebody could be that objective to just say, to just be willing to throw the freaking relationship out the door and throw the money out the door and just say, look, what is the objective here of what we're trying to do together? All right. And what would potentially be holding you back from being successful with me? And this, it's so rare that happens, you know? So I would just say, when you gain the ability to just ask the questions that would actually even knock you out of being able to serve them. Do you really need a financial advisor, or are you okay on your own? Why do you even need a financial advisor in the first place? Why do you feel like you need somebody? Because they might come to the realization, you know what, maybe I don't need somebody, and then they might walk away. But a lot of times they won't. And you'll have gained so much in terms of clarifying in their mind what the value is. Well, it's valuable because even though I say I'm going to be looking at my financial statements every 3 months, I'm actually not going to be. Or even though I can say I'm going to be able to be objective when the market declines, I'm probably not going to be. And it helps them come to that realization on their own. So it might mean that you do lose the occasional opportunity. But I just think the asking great questions is the best marketing that you could ever possibly do, because it's so rare. And you just see that everyone wants to get out there and pitch and talk about, make it based on all kinds of assumptions. And it really is where there can be a huge miss.
Incredible, fascinating insight. Thank you so much.
Who else wants to talk about marketing? Sorry, I talked so much about that. I don't know why I did that. Anyways, I'll stop talking now.
I think what you said is important, Sarah, because I mean, I think at the end of the day, it is all about questions. I mean, if you're out there and you're an advisor, whether you're an advisor, you're marketing or whatever, asking people questions is really what's going to provide credibility and value. And I hate the word value, but you're giving them value before they even are even talking to you in an advisor-client relationship. I mean, you're giving free advice to people, again, whether it's you from marketing or us as advisors. I mean, I post a lot of stuff on Twitter and LinkedIn, and a lot of it's sort of critical of the investment industry, but people actually read that stuff. And it's not that they agree with everything, but they agree with certain aspects of it. But yet, if you're not putting that information out there, then people have no opportunity to see who you are, your personality, what you're about, or anything else. So, writing a blog is great, but again, being more in a conversational way with somebody, even if it's informal on a social media platform, is going to build more credibility for you in a person's eyes, because they can interact with you, no strings attached, versus again, just reading a blog and they might get the information, but in a different way. Both are important.
Yeah, like, any interaction you have on social media, and it's so easy. Like if I were to have to go to a networking meeting, I'd get all dressed up, go get on the subway, go come back. It's half my day. I can interact with 20 people within a span of a half hour on social media by just sending them a message. If you see the green dot on LinkedIn, for example. But see, people don't want to do that. People don't want to, they have to have it be like a marketing thing, a marketing campaign. It's like a 22-year-old asks you to connect. Ask the person, why was it you were asking me to connect? Was there some information you were seeking? How did you find me? Just like a sincere question, because you want to be in the position to be able to give to them. If you're consistently giving to people, if every interaction that somebody has with you, just try this for a day. Like every interaction somebody has with you on LinkedIn, or wherever you are doing this, or whatever it is, just say to the person, just say to yourself, I want to give as much as I can to this person that I'm going to knock them over. They say, holy cow, that was so informative. That was so caring. That was so, like, because people don't do this in general in the world, right? Like you ignored emails, ignored phone calls. Like pay attention to other people, the ones that are more like, if you really want to be strategic about it, the ones that are more likely to be clear. Why is Scott on the spotlight when I'm here? I'm going to be on the spotlight, Scott. Anyway, so like, why? I don't know. It's this thing is like they say, oh, the market has to be scalable. It's the idea of like, well, I don't have to pay attention to people to get them to want to do business with me. It's like, we're not in the business here. We're not selling like water bottles. Okay. We're selling ourselves here. It really is very simple. Pay attention to the people that you want to get as clients, and eventually it's going to make sense for somebody. So someone else says here, a suggestion to help answer Brian's question. I would get to know all the other fielding advisors in your area, FPA, NAPFA, et cetera. Ask for an informational interview, take each one to lunch or coffee, explain your unique approach. He did it. This is from Skip. Hi, Skip. Skip did this when he first started and he got referrals. Okay, from other advisors. Yes, I think that might be a good idea, because a lot of times advisors, this is another thing I'm hearing from my clients, that advisors are hearing from prospects that are saying, I want to work with a flat fee advisor. So you should probably be networking with other advisors. I do have that LinkedIn group that I put the links into the chat. If you don't know what I'm talking about in terms of my LinkedIn group, then please ask me. but I see the point of that other advisors can be viable, but I think a lot of times people use it as a way to escape from the difficulty of having to go out into the cold market where nobody knows you and it's hard to get their attention and they might potentially be rude to you. I think sometimes it could be very much a escape response when people do that. So just make sure that it's not that you do have to spend the majority of your time going to wrangle the attention of people who don't know you, probably distrust you, and might be a little bit rude to you. Just saying what reality is. Cody, and provide guidance without posting your firm link or saying, send me a DM for more information. If your educational feedback is seen as marketing, it won't be immediately trusted. The best way to show someone you care about them is to actually care about them. Have a sense of urgency to help without expecting anything in return. You ironically receive much more in return that way. Yep. No, I totally agree with that. And that's when it comes to like your mission and your purpose. Really feeling that mission and purpose here. So like if you're not fired up already about the purpose and mission of being an advice only, hourly, or flat fee advisor, go ahead and engage in some of these fights that I seem to be starting all the time on social media, and that'll get you fired up as hell. It's fun. I kind of cry myself to sleep some nights over it, but it's fun as hell. Sometimes I just get so sometimes like there was one day when the trolls and then the like bashers, the haters, right? Like it's so weird because I got hated on for like 2 days in a row and then they went away on the third day. And I was kind of like, it was a weird thing. It was like, I feel like something's missing from my day. Like, where are the mean comments? It was weird. I tweeted out, I go, where are all I've been missing you, the people, you haters, please come back. It did more for my algorithm as well. Really helped me in the algorithm. Okay, so who's here? Hi, haha, Jill, love it. Okay. Okay, can we end the webinar now?
It's your show, Sarah. End it when you want.
Okay, yeah, and I just want to say something about having tough skin. I didn't always have tough skin. When I was like in my 20s and 30s, I was crying in the bathroom at Lehman Brothers like once because my boss was so mean to me and stuff. But one thing that really helps is if you just realize like, okay, there's certain boundaries you can't cross. Like you can't say anything about anybody's race, okay? Like you can't go out there saying bigoted things or whatever, like political statements, etc. Like that's going to get you in a little, in more than a little bit of trouble. And plus it's just a lousy thing to do, to cross those certain boundaries, right? So don't cross it. But when you, like, first of all, no one really remembers anything after like 2 weeks, okay? But the thing is, like people I'm really criticized a lot and I definitely bring it on because first of all, I think it's kind of entertaining. But second of all, I do have a point to make and I'm here to make change. And that meets with a lot of resistance often. But the thing is about it, it's not like they're resisting me. It's not like they're like, oh, I hate your lipstick. I hate your, I think you're not a good mother to your kids. They're not like, oh, like I hate, I think you don't, you say you're vegan, but you're not vegan, like whatever. It's not like that. It's like, they're not attacking me personally. They're attacking the ideas that I represent. And even though sometimes I may interpret it that way because they're like you and you're like, what I do interpret personally is when they're like, you're not even a freaking financial advisor. You're like a CFA, not a CFP. Like sometimes I do take some of those comments personally when they attack my background or whatever, but I'm just like, whatever, like that. You're so weak to get away from the argument. The Socratic argument, you have to look at it. They're like, the more debate we can get, the more we can get to the truth. And if someone's going to come back and criticize, well, there is some degree of argument in that. If it's a well-constructed argument, then maybe that's valid to me. And for me to make a stronger argument, I have to overcome that objection because it's all it really is. A criticism is just an objection. And I'm limited in my strength if I can't overcome the objection that they have because of their beliefs. So it's making me stronger. That's how I look at it. Okay, let's end the webinar.
Keep up the good work, Sarah.
What?
Keep up the good work.
Let's everybody. I'm here for you. Like I'm here to impact society, and I just think we could all do it. Like, don't you understand? There's people at the playground, like the single mothers, the disabled people. There's people that are underserved, like really not just like underserved the way financial advisors say it, like the $2 million people that like don't get tax advice or whatever. Like there's freaking people who are like divorced or this or that, like so many obstacles that they've had to overcome. And like the advice industry will not touch them. There's the college kids. There's the college kids that they're getting into credit card debt and overdraft fees, and like somebody save them, save these people. You know what I mean? It's like it will result in so much of a better society, safer society, everything. So we have so much potential here. There's so much blue ocean for us to go out there and to include, to be inclusive. This is about inclusion, everybody. We can change millions and millions and millions of people. So having said that, I'm ending the webinar. Bye, everybody.